What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in this video, I did actually want to jump back on Need for Speed Rivals because I did end up doing a similar video on Need for Speed 2015 and also Need for Speed Payback. That was going to be a simple question. What hurt that said Need for Speed game? So this one is obviously what hurt Need for Speed Rivals. So I did actually jump back on this game. I have been playing it a bit more. And you know what? I have to admit it right off the bat. This game wasn't terrible, but on the same side of that though, when jumping back onto Rivals and playing it for a bit, I can definitely see some of the flaws, or at least some of the things people weren't a fan of. So the first thing I want to ask right off the bat, guys, did you prefer to be a racer or one of the police? I would say a lot of players are probably going to pick the racer side, but I am curious to know what you guys think about that in the comments below. For me personally, I actually preferred being a cop in this game. The reason for that is I found it a lot more fun to actually go into the races and bust the actual racers than instead of being a racer itself. It's probably going to be the kind of thing of like a preference of what you most likely enjoy playing as. But then again though, this can also probably come down to the simple fact that, let's be honest here, the cops are probably going to be a tad overpowered in Rivals. I mean, it's kind of hard not to notice that the police are definitely insane in this game. And on top of that, you're also going to have the weapons. This is something I feel like most players do not like, and I have to admit it, I feel like Need for Speed Hot Pursuit did it a tad better. So if you're going to be a police officer in this game, you can use something like the ESF, which is like a shockwave. You have something like the helicopter roadblock. You have the shock ramming thing and stuff like that, and you also have some other stuff like the EMPs and all that. But it is probably going to come down to something that you actually want to run. And then when you are playing as a police officer, though, you're going to have the access to all of these weapons just like you would as a racer, even though as a racer you're not going to be able to call in a helicopter or a roadblock because that would make no sense. Imagine seeing an entire roadblock full of McLaren P1s. Like, what, bro? That makes legit no sense. So you're going to have something like the turbo, the spike strip, and stuff like that. So it's a bit different. But again, all the weapons are going to have a big controversy over them. I have actually noticed a lot of people do not like the weapons, or at least they're a bit overpowered to run them. And I feel like a lot of people are like, man, the weapons in Rivals are like basically Hot Pursuit weapons, but even stronger. Like having a shockwave on your vehicle, man, is just absolutely insane. The other part I have to admit is playing as a cop, you can actually bust the racers so easily. Like running into the racers a few times and using your shockwave on them, then calling in a roadblock, you're probably going to end up destroying them pretty dang quick. And of course, using something like a hypercar is going to make it even easier. This also brings me into the next topic, the health of the vehicles in this game. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't hate it, but we can all agree that even a maxed out car like the Koenigsegg or even the hypercars, they get destroyed so dang easy, man. Like, I was actually using some of the police cars, and even the race cars also fall into this. Like, if you hit a couple of things, you're then basically find your health bar going down to 3/4, halfway, a quarter, and it's basically plummeting faster than Destiny's Future. It's so sad. But I really do feel like a lot of players probably got annoyed even having a maxed out car with maxed out durability on it. Your car still gets destroyed so dang quick. Now, I don't know if I'm tripping out on this, but I do feel like police cars aren't as terrible. That's only going to come down to the fact that you're probably trying to crash the racing cars and all that. So your car's probably going to be a tad more durable because you don't get hit as much. Unless you get hit by like an EMP or like a shockwave, but a majority of the time you're most likely doing the ramming on the cars and stuff like that, so you're probably going to be okay. But if we actually flip that over to a racing side though, you're probably going to notice a way different outcome. For example, on this, guys, I was using the McLaren P1 in the clip you guys do see in the background. Love this car, by the way, easily one of my favorite vehicles to run in Rivals. Sounds amazing, handles great, it's also very quick. The issue with this car though is if you barely touch anything like a guardrail, you go over like a spike strip on accident with half the car, like 2 tires on it, you lose so much dang health, man. And I would say it's probably going to be a tad frustrating because you're like, okay, this thing is maxed out, and now I'm actually getting destroyed just trying to do one event. Now, don't get me wrong, I do understand you could probably practice a bit, maybe, not run into the police or crash as much because I wasn't driving that great. Haven't been playing this game that much, guys, so do not judge me in the comments. I have not been playing Rivals that often, but I do admit though getting back on this game was a tad twitchy compared to like other racing games because it has been a minute, but luckily after doing a few of the events and driving around for a bit, I was like, okay, we are right back at home, let's do some of the events in the P1. What could go wrong? The first thing I notice right now, guys, do let me know in the comments. Do you also agree that the police in this game are absolutely insane? My goodness. And the funny part about this, though, is I normally do actually play as a cop. Like, I don't play as a racer that often. So when I jump back onto being a racer running the P1, I was like, bro, the cops are crazy on here. They basically do not stop. They are super relentless. I'm not saying they're going to be extremely overpowered, but let's be honest. They are definitely pretty dang crazy. Like, you have to actually outmaneuver them. You can't crash them. You have weapons. You can most likely be a lot faster, outmaneuver them and stuff. But it is definitely going to be pretty dang annoying at certain times with like 3 or 4 cops on you. And then, of course, you also have the racers running into you on top of that. The one good thing I actually liked about this, though, is yes, you do lose health really quick as a racer. You can actually get busted or at least wrecked pretty dang easily depending on the car you're running. I noticed something like the P1 or even the Zesto Elemento, they actually get destroyed pretty dang quick, but then again, it's probably going to be most of the hypercars getting hit in like the back of them, or at least like the back part of the tire seems to lose a lot of health, depending on how the cops or the racers hit you. This is probably going to be something that can annoy many players being a racer because, like, bro, you are most likely going to get your car destroyed pretty quick, and you can actually get a lot of SP and stuff like that if you do avoid the police. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be impossible, like the cops are actually like not possible to beat them. I actually had a run last night to where I got around 170,000 speed points, which I do know is not all that great, but I did do a couple of races. I actually lost multiple pursuits and stuff like that, and I was fine. One of the best things about this is the fact that you can go through the main gas stations as many times you want with both categories. I love this. You can legitimately hit any of the gas stations, fix your car, get your weapons replenished, and keep going. I love that feature. We all do know newer racing games, or at least Need for Speed, you can only get like 2 or 3 times at nighttime, and then during the day I do believe you can have as many times as you want, even though you're basically just going to fix your car if it's damaged a bit, because you don't have to battle police in the daytime, at least in Unbound and Heat, but probably is going to be a bit subjective there, having unlimited times you can go in a gas station, because then you basically can last forever. So I guess it does make sense with how those games are designed. Now, for me, though, I would say that was probably the #1 thing players did not like about Need for Speed Rivals. That is probably going to come down to the way you are as a racer going against the police and how powerful the police actually are. Some of the big positives for me on Rivals, I did like the map on this game, guys. I thought it was beautiful. I loved it. I also like the fact as like a racer, you can actually go against like the other AI that are racing around in like a dual race, and as a police driver, you can also bust random racers around the map. Now, I did like that feature, but there's also something I did not like. If you are a racer, guys, if you did want to cruise around, enjoy the map a bit, maybe take that car for a test drive, you always got police on you no matter what. To be honest, this was probably one of my biggest complaints in Rivals, even though this might sound kind of dumb. For me, I just did not like that. If you actually drive around a bit, the cops always come after you no matter what. You can legitimately be just driving down the road, minding your own business, cruising on the speed limit, listening to some Post Malone, and boom, the police are like, hey, yo, bro, what you doing breaking the law? It's like, I'm cruising down the road in my new Mustang. Can I just drive, bro? But no, the police are like, not today, man, not today. So that was one thing I was not the biggest fan of. A few of the other positives I did want to talk about. For one, as far as I do know, there was not a lot of microtransactions in this game, which was obviously a big plus. I mean, a lot of the games now do have way too many of them, which is probably going to be a separate discussion, but at least back in this game, though, there was really not much of anything. I saw something about the Koenigsegg 1 being on the store, but it has been so long I do not know what that actually costs, if it does cost anything, but even then there is not that much stuff you can actually buy, so at least the game has a lot of content, and you can actually play it, unlock stuff, and that was the other thing I did like. That brings me right into it. Maxing out cars and stuff and actually doing that was so dang fun because you had to get speed points and then you actually spend those to max out your car. You can then go jump back onto the lobby and do some races, mess with some police, or, be the police officer depending on the class you want to run, and then go back and buy some upgrades and stuff like that to be better equipped when you're actually out in the game itself. I feel like, guys, not only is Rivals going to have some negatives, but there's definitely some positives there. I would like to know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Do you think Need for Speed Rivals was one of the worst Need for Speed games, or do you think it was one of the better ones? If I actually had to choose between one of two of those options, I would definitely lean toward the side that it was a bit better.